What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 30 of the Club Lorcana podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jeremy Bertrioni. With me, as always, and Syed.
Hello, hello.
And special guest for this week, you know him, you love him. This is Ryan Walker.
I'm back.
Ryan the Last Dragon, as we've been calling him.
Oh, yeah, Ryan. I forgot about that.
And we wanted to start off this podcast with a little shout out. This podcast is partially brought to you by Metagame. Us gamers are always trying to get a little bit of money while we're giving you the content that you want. And lately, Zam, why don't you talk about Metagame and your deal that you made with them?
The deal that I made with them. Yeah, so basically I launched my Metagame 24 hours ago, but it's going to be more like 72 hours to you guys. So I did one for my third place deck from NA Continentals. So it's for my green steel deck. So if you are interested in learning the ins and outs of that deck, go check it out. It's in video form, so it'll be easy to follow.
These are modules, you know. We have all the masters these days available at our fingertips. Brandon Sanderson just uploaded his writing class that he teaches at BYU. And in a similar vein, Zan Syed is teaching you how to play green steel on Metagame.
Hell yeah.
All right, that was our shout out. We're also sponsored by these fancy playmats that were done by the winner of DLC Atlanta. I didn't even hold it up, but there he goes. And then also this podcast brought to you by, I don't know what it's, Simply Safe. No, I'm just kidding. We don't have Simply Safe yet. All right, we got a lot to talk about this week, but before we get there, let's talk about the metagame. So, set championships. This was the semi-final week of the set championships. How did everybody do? We'll start with Zan.
I split the finals on my birthday with my co-host, Jeremy.
Hey, congrats, Zan. Split the finals. What'd you play?
I played blue-red.
And what was the rationale?
Felicia, she's really nice. You know, she gets the job done against the aggro decks. I mean, if you can't beat them, just, you know, join them. That's the rationale.
I think blue-red is one of the best decks. I've been having a lot of success with it on Lorcanito. Ryan, how did the set championships go for you?
Oh, this weekend wasn't great for me. This was my fourth set championship I had been to, and I had lost in top four the first three. So I got scars, all three of my first ones. So the fourth one, I started to think, you know, how do I get over the hump? I actually lost to blue-red in all three of the top fours, the other top fours. So I didn't want to lose to blue-red again. And one way to go about it is if you can't beat them, join them.
Yep.
I had that deck cooked up with the Felicias and everything. And I had also been toying with a different version of green steel. If you guys saw my first set champ list, I had one bend to my will in that deck. And it went really hard against blue-red in that tournament. Obviously has downside as well. It's a 7-drop uninkable, so it gives you some really bad hands if you draw it at the wrong time. So I went with green steel, but I doctored this deck up to be much better into blue-red. Unfortunately, I never saw blue-red in the tournament. We didn't get to it. I got ninth. I got ninth on breakers, unfortunately. The deck's still not there. The whole basis was normal green steel stops its curve around 5, right? A lot of games, so you never get to the bend of the will. We put the 3-drop Hey into the deck. Blue-red, you're always behind on ink, right? If I'm green steel going against blue-red, I'm always behind on ink, so Hey is basically always live.
Yeah.
And that was always getting me to the 7 ink I needed. And if I play a bend to my will against blue-red, I just win the game, basically. If I have Prince John down, I'm drawing 3 cards. If I have 2 Prince Johns, I'm drawing 6 cards, right? So obviously that's best case scenario, but that was the game plan. It did help that I knew Zan was playing blue-red. I wasn't specifically just trying to beat Zan, but I really wanted to beat blue-red. I didn't want to lose to blue-red in the top 4 again.
No, I totally get it. All right, let me do a little breakdown real quick. So NA Continentals is about to happen. So we're going to rewind in time real quick. So NA Continentals is about to happen, and I'm testing a whole bunch, and I know that blue-red and red-purple are going to be the 2 most popular decks. So I'm thinking blue-red, how do I beat this deck? If you take traditional green steel from Vegas or Seattle, both of them are not suited to beat the current version of blue-red. So we have to rewind a little bit more. We're rewinding again. We're going back to the Bucky era, right? We're in Bucky. We're in Dallas. DLC Dallas. What happened back then was Bucky was met with a new version of red purple and a new strategy with red purple, which is like ink everything and only play things that draw a card, and then play your be prepareds and sisus, right? And so basically the thought process is, if we rat the board, we'll win the game, right? And so that same strategy is now applied to blue red. They cut the fishbone quills, and so they're no longer emptying their hands, and they would preferably sail as opposed to Tipo. And so they have more cards on average in their hand, and also a lot of those cards are not songs. So they end up with Sisu at the end at the end of like their hand, right? And that's going to line up really well against green steel, especially if you're a slower green steel. So I had given up playing green steel for NA Continentals until Aaron and I came up with a hyper aggro plan. And so basically what you were doing was, instead of like dealing with their game plan by being more aggressive, you were saying at the end of my curve, and I'm gonna ramp myself if they ramp themselves.
Preferably, I meet them right before their Sisu turns. Right, I'm ramping alongside of them, and then right before they're playing their win the game cards, I play my win the game card.
And that makes sense from a theory standpoint, but the problem is all the other matchups that you make worse along the way.
100%.
And so, we're just going to plug in the Metafy again. If you want to learn how to beat blue-red with green steel, there's only one approach, and that is the aggro approach. And that's the reason why I was able to make top 16 of NA Continentals, because you weren't going to ever dodge blue-red. The story ended up being NA Continentals 33% blue-red. Insane. Might have been 35.
No, I think it's in that range for sure.
Yeah, which was insane. So now, like, once you know that blue-red is going to be played, it's so difficult. It's so difficult to beat that deck because it's gotten everything and more. And so yeah. So play, if you want to beat blue-red with green steel, you have to be aggressive. And that's kind of the story with pretty much every deck in the format right now. You want to win, be more aggressive.
And then I closed out my weekend by getting a big dub over the birthday boy in Wingspan.
Ooh, not a Wingspan podcast. We did crack into the old board game Wingspan. It was Zan's birthday, and we finished up the tournament kind of early. We had about an hour to kill, and I was like, hey, I got a Wingspan in my car. And that blew Ryan's mind because he only ever brings the minimum amount of stuff required to participate in a tournament. So the idea of somebody having something fun in the car was just too much for him. I looked over and saw one of your matches, and you had in your hand 3 Bend to My Wills and no ink, and you just died. So that must have felt pretty bad.
That was a pretty rough time. And it was a rough time for Zan to sit next to me.
I don't know why you would do that to yourself. I played blue-red today on Lorcanito, and I went up against a blue-green Bend to My Will deck, and that deck beat me badly. It had Clarabelle and Bend to My Will, and just easily beat me.
Yeah, the approach there is you play Hiram, and then you don't quest.
Right. You save it you bank the cards. I thought about doing that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Once you figure that out, then you start winning.
I played 2 set champs this weekend. I won the first one because I got the champion mat in the split against Zan. I played red-purple. It's the same list I posted on Twitter, but what I wanted to do was take out the 2 Madam Mims and put in 2 Lady Tremaines, so it was all 4 Lady Tremaines. But I didn't get a chance to because as soon as I showed up, the guy was like, I need your deck list right now. And then I handed it to him, and then we waited 20 minutes, and then the tournament started. So, like, do you? Really? That's weird. Anyway, the next day we went to a really nice store that I would shout out, Cards HQ. Excellent tournament, professionally done. Everybody who's anybody in Atlanta was there. Zan and Ryan were absent. I made top 4. With the red-purple deck and died to blue-red in the finals, and that's totally because I failed to move the Medusas in for the Tremaines in for the Medusas.
So would you say that's laziness?
Yeah, I would say basically I didn't want to move around the sleeves and the boxes.
Sag.
Just didn't feel like it. Top 4 was good enough for me, though. I got now 3 scars, having sold my first ones, and I only have 3 remaining, and a playmat. So, if you're looking for high-end Lorcana collectibles, get at me, chat. I'm just kidding. All right, so moving on. What happened this week? We had DLC Melbourne Down Under.
Nice. Kangaroo boxers.
Yeah, kangaroo boxers, a lot of koala bears in the chat. Let's just get it out of the way. There was a rule shark incident in Melbourne. I think I'm just going to describe exactly what happened. So we're going to say the active player, it was their turn. They quested with their magic broom. Then they played a Merlin the goat. They went to write down their additional lore gained. And then they went to sacrifice their broom. And opponent said, wait a minute. In order for you to be able to sacrifice that broom, you have to announce both of your triggers as they go into the bag before you pull one out. Right, judge? And a judge who was there watching the table, because this was a camera match, verified that was correct. And to be, I guess, fair to the judge, there was like a month last year where it was correct. Mm-hmm. It was like Rule 404.0.3 or whatever that said that he had to do that. But that rule has been errated. And so now, whenever you have multiple triggers go into the bag simultaneously, you do not have to announce which one comes out first, or even that they're both in there. You can resolve them one after the other without announcing how many there are. It is speculated by many that this was known by the opponent at the time that he called the judge, and the reason is because 30 minutes later in the match, the same thing happens. Active player plays a goat, sacks the broom, and the guy doesn't have a problem with it. The only reason he had a problem with it this time is because there was a Maui shark on the other side of the field that was looking to eat up some brooms. Maui, not the only shark in that deck. Am I right, guys?
It's insane that there was a
Oh my god!
during all this.
So that's what happened. Everyone's got a take. Everyone's got thoughts. I did a lot of fact finding on Twitter. I tried to get as much information as possible. Ravensburger has said that they are looking into this, that they are not going to talk about the results of their investigation. But the community is calling for this person who won and then went on to secure a spot at Worlds. They're calling for him to get his Worlds invite rescinded. Yay or nay? Starting with Zan.
I mean, I don't think that I'm going to say that this person should get rescinded. I don't think that, like, as a person who's playing, I think my opinion has a little bit more weight to it, and I don't think that I want to make a stance on that. Would I be on guard if I'm playing against this player at Worlds? Yes,
I would say so.
But I think that a person who needs to do this type of stuff in order to win I'm gonna farm them. Like, I don't feel like I need to do this type of stuff. So, I do think that for the general public, this is a player that's bad for the community. The thing that actually bothers me is that there has been a previous incident where they were stacking their deck in an online tournament, and and they admitted to it and admitted to the wrongdoing. And there's like Discord receipts and stuff that you can find online that really bothered me, that there's a history of things that you've done wrong in this game.
Sure.
Right? Like, if you have a previous history, I think that, redemption should be allowed. But at this point in time, that I think that's what creates a larger case, that there's a history already in such a short amount of time. And I definitely feel like I can understand if they were to revoke, Disney or Ravensburger were to revoke it, because they want year one to be all people who earned it without needing to behave this way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Ryan, your thoughts?
Yeah, just on the last point, right? I think if they're going to make a stance, it would be this, right? Especially if it's early on, they want to set a precedent, I would imagine. I think there's been a ton of discourse online already about this, right? This is probably the 6th podcast you're hearing go over this scenario. So I actually want to talk about the other side of the table during all this. And I think maybe I'm uniquely positioned at this table to talk about Jesse's side, right? And I don't know Jesse or his situation, but I think it's fair to say he was the less experienced player at the table, right?
Definitely. I heard that he didn't even know that you could appeal to the head judge.
Sure, right? So, you guys have played card games for 20 years at this point. I have 2 years, and Atlanta DLC was my first big tournament. Mm-hmm. So I think, okay, I'm Jesse at Atlanta DLC, and I got a stream match. Would I have known that I could appeal to the judge in this scenario? I don't know if I would have. Obviously, I got a lot of information from you guys at this point, but it makes me think, all these new players coming into Lorcana, they're not all coming from a new game. Maybe they played a little Pokemon or Magic, whatever it is. What can new players take away from this situation, right?
Yeah.
The judges are there to help in this situation, but the onus is on the player to know the rules and what they have at their disposal to not let this happen to them, right?
Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to say about this is that in Magic, there was in these style of events, they were called Grand Prix. There was a day 1, there's a day 2, just like this event, right? In day 1, it was a different rule set. It was like, I don't remember the name for it.
Competitive versus professional.
Once you made it into day 2, you're held to a higher degree. So like an infraction that you would make in day 1, in day 2, it would be weighted more heavily. And so I would argue, playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, I would argue that it's Jesse's responsibility to know the rules by day 2. If you haven't checked out the rule book at all, it's time to know what tools you may use. And so that's a little bit of that. But on top of all of that, in this whole situation, this was a rule that no longer existed. So this is a person who is using a rule that doesn't exist and trying, we don't know whether or not there was a manipulation involved, and that's where history plays a part. And that's why I think that, if this was just a one-off case, I'm looking at this situation and I'm saying this person is just trying to win at all costs. They understand what's on the line. They probably recognize that their opponent is newer and they want to win at all costs. I'm not opposed to that. But this person has a history that makes this lean more towards malicious.
So I got into a little bit of trouble online because I was doing a little bit of fact finding and I was asking people questions. Chris Anderson posted that he thinks that this guy is a cheater. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm surprised to hear you say that. Why do you think he was cheating? Mm-hmm. So let's just throw that question around. Was Rule Shark cheating when he did this?
Since it was since it was not a real rule, there's a lot of assumptions we have to make. We have to make the assumption that he knew that it wasn't a real rule,
right?
And that he's trying to use an old rule. It might mess up the judge.
Yeah. And
he might be able to get away with something that may not have been possible.
Sure.
But if this was within the rules, then I'm more so this is in that gray area of what's going on. Again, then it starts going back to his history. You're okay, is this a person who generally makes good choices or bad choices? And in the game, this is someone who has admitted to cheating.
Yep.
Did the cheat, admitted to cheating, asked for forgiveness, was forgiven. Sure. So something else that I want to say to Ravensburger and Disney is, if you are not okay with this person winning Worlds, then the decision should already be made. Because if this person wins Worlds and then you have a problem, then it's too late. Sure. So we have to be, if this person is allowed to play in Worlds, you have to be okay with this person winning Worlds. Mm-hmm. And so I've seen this mistake happen in the past, and I don't want to see it happen in the future, right? Because year 1 does represent a lot. We don't want to have this huge smudge on our game if we're gonna taking a risk with a player that has not made good choices.
Yeah, I think we want to be talking about other things right now, right? We want to be talking about the new set and where the metagame is going to go, right? Instead, we're talking about this situation. I think the other side of this coin is what happens after he goes to the judge, right? I'm not going to like trash any judges or anything like that in this conversation. We don't even know who was there, but some of the onus has to be on the judges, right? And obviously this is a takeaway of, okay, moving forward, what can we do as a Lorcana or Ravensburger to remedy this situation, right?
Right. So I guess the big mystery is going to be we're going to see if he gets the Worlds invite. Sorry, guys, I was just looking up because a lot of players had some good opinions on Twitter that I was reading about like whether or not this was cheating. And then one of the posts that I was going to reference actually got deleted, so it was really interesting. I know, spicy. There's been a lot of discourse about this. Let's, I guess, do a little bit of discourse about the discourse. We've had Lorcana Villain weigh in. We've had Pleasant Kenobi come over from Magic the Gathering to make video about this. Like, how should the community react in this situation?
I mean, in Magic, a bunch of this stuff came out, especially when when cameras became more common. And so our game is starting from this point, more cameras involved. And I think that we have a chance at having a no tolerance policy for this type of behavior. And if we have a no tolerance policy, then this game can be great and not have a bad reputation like some of the other games have had.
Stamp it out before it gets there.
Exactly. I mean, like I caught a high profile cheater in my Las Vegas tournament who had already gotten a second place in a DLC, and I don't know how many times he performed that cheat, and I felt like I barely caught it. Jeremy was sitting right next to me and no one said anything. And this person had to have done it so many more times.
He peels to all the time.
Hmm?
Yeah, he had peeled to all the time. You can tell he just did it so like.
It was insane. I legitimately couldn't believe that happened in front of me, and the response from the judges wasn't more like this person should not be doing this type of behavior. It took a lot more to do that. But I will say to the judges' credit, they figured it out in Vegas. But I'm not sure if enough of the staff that we're used to seeing was present in Australia. So what I want to see, right, going back to what Ryan was saying about the judges system, people are calling for a judge program. Like I'm on board for that. What I want to see is like these high level judges be at every event.
Yeah.
So that there is consistency of rulings across the board. Because the only thing I've heard about Australia is the amount of people that were cheating.
I've heard some of the more casual players had a really good time. So trading card games very rarely go to Australia.
Yep.
Which is part of the reason that a lot of people there were a little less experienced, might have led to more cheating, but they had a great time at their trading card game convention. So it's really kind of tough to get product in some places in Australia. Yep. So there were a lot of collectors there. I think the Disney fan side of it, getting to meet artists and get their cards signed, went really well from what I'm reading on Reddit.
Yeah.
Which is good because Australia, in terms of trading card games, gets no love. When I heard there was a DLC in Australia, I spat my water out. I was like, what? We've never gone to Australia.
Yeah.
Been one GP in Sydney ever.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely something.
So I heard the casual side of it went pretty well, but the competitive side I heard was pretty rocky. There was a guy switched decks between top 64 and top 32, and when they told the judges about it, they were like, we'll look into it. They like confirmed that he was actively metagaming against each opponent, which is sweet, by the way. It's like an obviously awful cheat, but like you shuffle up yellow purple against your like red blue guy, and then the next time you're like on red purple, and you're like, whoa man, you're just playing every deck, which is bad, and I condemn it. It's like funny though. It's like when somebody like jumps over like a dam in a motorcycle or whatever. You're like, oh yeah, but that's illegal and therefore upsetting. In other news in Australia, it was winner chicken dinner. Den King fan DKP took home the gold in Australia, securing his invite to Worlds along with the notorious Shark. Zan, this is your teammate. What all went into that?
Yeah, I got to see Din's list beforehand.
Sure.
And I saw it. I didn't have time to test it, but if I had time to test it, I mean, my initial thought was, does this work? I was like, does this work? And I mean, basically everybody has had the theory of like, can we freaking cut Tamatoa and Dime and all this stuff? And I mean, Din figured it out. I mean, I've kind of been seeing Din trying to piece this together for multiple continentals, and I'm glad that he figured it out in time, because if he didn't figure it out in time, then he doesn't get to play in Worlds. So I was proud of him and equally impressed that he figured it out. He won Australia. I mean, crack player, like great job figuring out a good deck. And it keeps like the easiest way to win a DLC is, think outside the box and, create your own jam that actually tests well against the entirety of the format. I think that is the easiest way to victory. You could obviously play, like do it the old school way, play a deck everybody knows about at the highest level. But to be honest, I mean, I think that's the hard way. That's like, you got to get lucky.
There's been a lot of success, and you play one of the top decks in the metagame, but tweaked slightly. That's like sort of what we got. Your green steel list was like pretty known, but your list was a little bit different, had a little bit of that special sauce. Definitely the case with DKP's, you would say basically red-blue deck in Australia, and probably some other DLCs. We had a tweaked version of the aggressive yellow-purple deck by the guy who gave us these playmats.
Yeah, I would say so Din's list was probably like 8 to 10 cards off the norm.
Right.
And then Green Steel was off by like 12 to 14 cards.
So the winning formula is go between 12 and 8 cards off from the regular list of the top decks in the meta.
It's not really a formula. It's actually like the thing that contributes it to the most is the card availability. So the more cards that we have available, the more like things can differ, because right now the card pool is way small, right? Like if you think about Magic, how many times have I played cards that you've never heard of?
Zan famous for playing Elder Deep Fiend in Standard.
No, what was the one where
Zer's Weirding.
Yeah, all the judges would freak out.
Yeah.
Try to explain this card to Ryan.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
All ears.
It's like a location, but you can't attack it.
Okay.
It's an enchantment. So it gets in play, and it says the games have a new set of rules or whatever. Similar to locations do. Like, how Merlin College says the top card is revealed?
Oh, yeah. Sounds fun.
Okay. So this one says both players reveal the top card of their deck. And whenever a player draws a card, the other player can pay 2 life to make them discard it instead. Which in Lorcana would be like saying you can gain 2 lore, but discard that card instead of drawing it.
Wow.
It is a pretty crazy card to have in play. I think it is just fully 2-sided, right? They can deny your draws as well. So they also have the ability to say, you don't draw that, you gain 2 lore instead.
But my deck, what my deck does is it gains life every single turn.
Which would be like, reducing their lore or whatever.
Yep. And so I'll have like a ton of life that I can pay. Number 2 thing is I have a card that says I can put a card from my discard pile on top of my deck. So I just keep putting the card that they don't want me to do. Yeah. So I just do it every turn. And so
while denying them the draw.
Exactly.
It was how Zan locked people out with Lantern Control in Modern.
Exactly. So how many people have I seen ever play this card?
0.
Or 0?
But all the judges were super excited because this card was super tricky with the rules, right? Obviously, I'm saying like a lot of stuff. So how does that card actually work? Like, what does it go on in the bag or like what? And the judges would come and be like, "Ooh, I know how this works," because for their like test that they had to take, it's like such a bizarre corner case that it would like come up a lot. They're like, what if a player has Zer's Weirding in play and they cast a card that lets them draw 3 cards? It's like, oh, great. But just a situation where you would just snap call a judge in real life because it's so complicated.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, and Zan always has those in play somehow. He always has some complicated Elder Deep Fiend in play.
But yeah, I love that stuff. That's my favorite stuff.
Zan's favorite stuff. We are excited to talk about Set 7, although that will be... Oh, wait, we were talking about DKP. He was the only player to qualify for both Continentals. Now qualified to Worlds by winning in Australia. Is DKP more machine than man? You've met him. What are your thoughts?
Machine than man.
It's pretty impressive what he's done. He's traveled to the most DLCs by far, right?
By a lot. By a lot.
High-profile player. So he's definitely put the work in.
I respect it so much. Yeah.
I mean, it seems like justifiable that he gets in the Worlds, right?
No.
You don't want
Obviously,
to make...
if you're in Worlds, you want the left.
I don't want it to be a
attendance.
For sure.
You don't want to make Worlds an attendance
He's a great player, and that should come first.
Yeah.
Do you think this list was a little, let's make blue-red like red-purple? Let's do the best things.
I mean, if you look at basically if you look at Shark's list from... Seattle.
Oh, that was what you did.
That's what I did.
His list in Seattle, and you made blue, red, like red, purple.
Exactly. So it had 4 McDuck Manors and 4 Be Prepared. But it did not have Maui Shark.
True.
Because it did not exist yet. It did not exist yet.
Because Maui Shark had yet to be born.
Yes. Instead, I had Lady Tremaines and Medusas. Same in the same spot. So was it... I mean, like... I've always liked that theory, but that theory has to be also applicable when the format is exactly right. Sure. I think that, if the format right now was more Ed's list everywhere, I'm not so sure if Ed would have such an easy time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Basically, like I still do think that Flynn Rider, Sisu, Castle, all that stuff together can still be problematic for the deck. So into like 4 Medusas. I mean, not Medusas, Tremaines.
Yeah.
I think that does make it a little bit more complicated. But, I mean, right now the meta is perfect. I think that it lines up well against blue-red. I think it lines up well against all the genie piles. I think it lines up well. I mean, I think green steel is a toss-up because if they go Diablo, you have less answers to Diablo. So I think that green steel can still beat it. But again, green steel is, if you're running hot with the deck, you're just going to win. But yeah.
All right. Well, the metagame is a little stagnant. We have Set 7 spoilers coming on February 10th. Obviously, that would be Monday. What do you guys... I mean, that was all I had on my bulleted list that I keep right up there. It's everything that I wanted to talk about for this episode, and we are now out of that stuff. What do you guys have? I mean,
Let's talk about the 10K.
We got plans this weekend, right? Most of us at this table anyway.
I'm not able to play in the 10K because I am driving to a planetary qualifier because I want to get qualified for the Star Wars Galactic Championships.
Didn't you just lose 4 games in a row?
That's testing. That's good. Well, that means I'm learning. You don't ever lose when you test? That's wild.
To be fair, he brought me the deck.
Yep.
He's a great guy, and he bought me the deck.
I found Ryan the deck that I wanted to test against the most, which also is the best deck in the format. It is Han Yellow, for those of you who play Star Wars. And yeah, we're testing it a little bit. I've been beating it a lot when I play Boss Control, but with Zan and Ryan behind the wheel, I'm not doing so well. It's roadblocks. It's why we test. So anyway, I'm playing in the PQ this weekend, so I didn't want to go to Miami, but what's in Miami?
We're not going to Miami, are we?
Wait, isn't it in Fort Worth?
Fort Lauderdale's basically Miami, right?
I guess, yeah.
That's what Inter Miami
Fort Lauderdale.
say. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's fair. Yeah, we're going to the FLL.
Jeremy thinks it's a fake tournament. They're not going to pay out prizes.
I wouldn't have said that on the podcast.
That's just his joke.
In Magic the Gathering, sometimes some guy runs a big tournament that everybody goes to, and then they're like, "When do we get our prize money?" And then that guy who runs that big tournament is nowhere to be found.
We don't think that's the case here, but the value on this tournament is pretty insane sounding, right?
I mean, it's a 10K. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're kind of spoiled for Magic. Every tournament basically we went to was a 20K or a 30K. Right. Or a 50K.
Not year one.
Yeah, that's fair. The cool thing about it is that these people who are running tournaments are profiting, and I do like that, or breaking even, which I love because that, like, basically in the past, card games needed to be run by like someone who didn't care about money and had made so much money that they're just doing it for the love of the game. But now it's actually profit motivated, and I would rather it be like that. I'm so happy and excited that Lorcana is already in this place, and I want it to be like this forever. So, like, what are your expectations for this weekend? Let's talk about the metagame.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously the big data point we have is Melbourne, right? So changes that are going to come from what happened in Melbourne, right? So, I mean, you look at what happened, obviously Din's list will be in the room, right? So how do we adjust to meet that? It's going to be me, you, and Nathan headed down, and some other world-class cards guys as well, right?
Yep. Logan?
Yeah.
Yep. Justin.
Yeah, I've done limited testing so far. I played some Lorcanito, played some red, blue, our same red blue list, and I've started to run into Din's list already.
Yeah.
I think Din's list is favored into our list currently.
To regular blue red, yes, of course.
Blue red has to adapt.
Yeah, blue red has to adapt or it dies. I mean, I think the simple adaptation is having answers to Shark and then having answers to McDuck Banner, which exist, right? We got hideaways, and then we also have Cusco. And then I think that Let It Goes and Dragonfires can help you with the Maui Shark situation.
You would way rather Dragonfire, but Let It Go is inkable. Well, are you splitting the difference between those two cards, or do you think 3 copies of each?
So let's say you're playing Din's list.
Okay.
In Din's list, you probably play Dragonfires.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There's 8 uninkables. Right? So you can...
Pretty consistent list. It's a great sale list. I mean, that's good.
I love that.
But I like it.
I also like it.
I'm talking about me right now.
Dang it.
Sorry, I love that joke.
But yeah, I think that you just need to have an answer for when it comes down. And I think you can be a little bit more greedy by playing Dragonfire. And then also you can bring Dragonfire back. So if you're able to connect a Maui with one of their characters, Maui Shark, and you're able to pull off another Dragonfire, that means that then they will know that they can't play a Maui Shark because they know that you have the Dragonfire. So I think that with regular blue-red, you can be thinking about going up on Maleficence, 9-drop, right? And on Hideaway. And Hideaway is still a great card because red, purple, and all these purple shells have decided to play Libraries and Queen's Castle again. So it's still good against that. And so if you just look at the way the format is right now, like it's not that hard of an adjustment, but basically you're going to see people who are playing pretty close to the stock list of Din, and you just need to be prepared to beat it because the deck has a huge imprint on the format. And like, to be honest, going into set champs, I was like, oh, I'm done. I don't have to worry. But Din changed the format.
Sure.
Which is more work.
That's great.
But I don't want to do more work.
We love working. I didn't change my Mana Medusas for Tremaines because I didn't want to go in another box this weekend. So you can tell we're not work averse at all.
Yeah. So I think that there's a couple of things that are good against Din's list, right? You can think that Pete is good. And then you can think that Along Came Zeus is good. It hits locations, hits, and takes care of Maui Shark. When you start like piecing together what those cards are, then you start to realize, oh, these are the shells that play this the best, right? This is Florida. Brennan DeCandio surely has some influence here. And so Diggy Hole is probably a very popular deck here. So going to this tournament, you can see that Din is going to have influence and Brendan DeCandia is going to have influence. And once you see that those are going to have huge percent of the metagame, your deck needs to be able to answer those decks. Otherwise, you can expect to have a bad time.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
I think that people are naturally going to want to play red-purple, East Coast, Georgia. If people are coming down from Georgia or wherever they're coming from, I think red-purple is still like there's going to be good players at the top of the ladder probably sitting with red-purple. So those are the 3 decks we're thinking about going into this tournament. As far as set champs go, I will say NA Continentals proved one thing. The thing that it proved was there are a lot of decks that are playable and he can win with a variety of different things. So the thing that you honestly should be doing is figuring out what your local meta is and then try to find the answer, because the answer that I'm telling you is for a specific location. Location does influence metagames. When we used to play Magic, we famously used to say like, Texas just plays burn.
Texas is an aggressive, hot place when it comes to Magic the Gathering. They're hitting you with lightning bolts. They're hitting you with goblin guys. Okay?
Yeah, they're just trying to burn you out.
And they were in Texas.
And it was so true that I would just go to Texas and I would just farm Texas, because I was like, oh my God, I would just farm Texas. I'm like, oh, they're like, how is this saying actually true?
Farm jokes.
Zan's like big solar over here because he's farming Texas.
Yeah. And I mow the lawn.
Boo. I didn't like that one. Here's my thing. Here's my tech for this weekend. My opponent puts a trigger in the bag. You missed it. All right. They hit my thing with a Maui the Shark. I'm like, you missed it. They go right for that. What do you mean? That was the only trigger in the bag. Sorry, buddy. I don't make the rules. You missed it.
Did you not watch
You
DLC Melbourne?
missed it. You missed it. Whatever it is. I don't even care. Honestly, that's what I would have done if I was in Jesse's spot, the guy who got Rule Shark. I would have been like, all right, play it as it lies. And then Maui Shark hits. I'm like, you missed it. I'm just going to say it until the guy cries. Just he misses every trigger from now on until the guy cries. Judge, you missed that one too, right?
And then you have to ask them, how does the stack work?
The bag.
How does the bag work?
How does the bag work? Marbles go in the bag, and the marbles are triggers.
But
and the players can pull them out of the bag in the order they choose.
that's honestly the meanest question. I remember when I first started playing Magic, I went to go play Friday Night Magic, and there was like a local great player, and it's like my second local event ever. They're like, how does the stack work? And I'm like, I don't know.
First in, last out in Magic the Gathering. So if you cast something and I cast something and I do your hands, you cast another thing and then you cast another thing, it resolves your last, and then goes like that.
Beautiful.
But in Lorcana, you get to shuffle the bag up and pull them out as you want.
Yeah, which is better, which I think is great. And I love that ruling was updated. So what was abused was not legal. I'm glad that it's like that. And so the game design and the rules are beautiful. I just hope that they're like enforced correctly.
Zan, do you remember a while back when I came to you and I said, hey, every time my opponent says a certain phrase, I lose. Whenever they go, this is a terrible matchup for me, I can't win.
Yeah.
I've beaten that. This is a terrible matchup for me now, but there's a new thing.
I just want to say, I don't believe in any of this stuff that Jeremy talks about. Jeremy has when we came from Magic, and Magic has a lot more variance, right? Because not every card is like in Lorcana, cards are inkable, but sometimes in Magic you can draw a card which is called a land that doesn't do anything but be ink.
Yeah.
And so sometimes if someone draws too many of them, they basically do nothing. Right. And so people associate a lot more hocus pocus with Magic. So what I want to say is I try to avoid believing in anything besides what I can control in Lorcana, because I think it's very dangerous. But yeah, continue with your. So
my opponent's shuffling and I'm shuffling, and we look at each other, and he hits me with one of these. He gives me I'm going to describe it for people that just listen and don't watch. He gives me like a brief, like really warm smile, and then goes back to his regular face. So it's like, and he just gives me one of those, and I'm shaking. He cracked me in half. This is my one loss this weekend in the top 4. So what's the move when your opponent gives you the smile into the regular face? Quick like that.
All right, first of all, I'm going to use that against you now.
Yeah, okay.
It's done. We're locked. We're just going to do that.
It's going to help me beat it. It's what happened when I brought it up on the podcast. People would they would sit down, start shuffling, and be like, I've never had a worse matchup in my life. And then I would do my counter that I brainstormed, which is I would go, actually, this is a bad matchup for me.
No way.
That's how I counter it. And it works.
Wait, no way that people started doing that.
People started doing that.
You already have a plan.
What do you think the plan is?
You counter creepy smile them. That's why you have the mustache.
First of all, I don't want to call this smile creepy because the guy was really nice. He was an awesome player. He didn't do a creepy smile. He did. I said it was a warm smile. But it came and then it went. It was a move for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I have a planned counter that I don't want to say just yet. Ryan, what do you do? They give you the smile, then they...
I can't say that. I'm better looking than them. I just smile right back at them. Ding!
Yeah, okay.
Hit them with
all
the
right.
Johnny Bravo. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And then you hand them some Chick-fil-A.
My pleasure.
I don't have kill it with kindness. I'm not some just good looking blonde guy that gets to just be like, hey, and then the cameras flash and everyone's like, where's the camera? What the heck happened?
I wouldn't notice.
If you got it, you use
Dan,
it.
you can't not notice.
Bro, okay.
It's a hypothetical.
Dude, do you know? Let's say this is like a serious match. We're playing in top 16 of worlds.
Yeah,
or
and your
something.
opponent looks at you and gives you a, and then drops it.
I'm like spaced out thinking about their deck.
You're like way too locked in.
I'm so locked in.
What if they're like, did you see my smile just now? They're like trying to break you out of it.
And I'd be like, what?
Zan's weak to getting psyched out is what I'm learning.
No, what I'm saying is like, you got to ignore that stuff.
You can't ignore that.
And the fact that you had time to even look at the smile, what were you doing?
We were both shuffling for the next game.
You should be thinking about the game, not about the smile. I don't even like register my opponent's there. They might as well not be there.
What do you mean your opponent will not be there? You got to play the
What do
opponent.
you mean?
don't
I'm
play
trying
the
to like
game.
digest all the information. What do you mean? Like, I'm like looking at, do you not see me like pick up the discard pile at the end of the game when the game, even if I'm winning or losing? Because I'm like trying to absorb. I'm like, okay, what lists are they playing? There's no way you already know all that stuff.
How can that be true? But you do pick up the pin tricks and you like coerce your opponent into making bad moves through like
That's
play.
happening in the game.
Sure.
And outside the game, I'm thinking about, that's the perfect time to think about everything that happened in the match and which version of the deck I'm playing.
But how can you mind control anybody if you're not paying attention to them?
You just said that they do this in between games.
Yes.
So when did the smile happen during the game?
I don't know.
All right, if it happened during the game, that's a completely different story.
No, it happened in between.
Okay, do you want me to answer the hypothetical if they did it in the game when I would be paying attention to the
Sure.
body
Yeah.
language?
Yes.
All right, I would be like first thing I would try to establish is whether I think that what type of player are they?
So
Are
you
they
call a judge.
newer player or like someone with experience?
This person's experience. This is like a move 100% of the way.
So then I'm trying to think whether they're trying to get me to have a reaction to it.
Sure.
And so then I would try to establish at this point whether they know who I am or not.
Everybody in Lorcana knows who you are, so that's easy.
Well, no,
Don't smile at Zan Syed.
them
when you
knowing
sit down at the
who I
table.
am,
Reading your mind.
them knowing who I am makes a huge difference.
Sure, they
right?
probably know who you are.
If they've heard how I talk about these things, then I think that they would be trying to psych me out for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I would be like, oh, it's nothing.
They don't have it.
They don't have anything.
Wow. Jeez Louise.
Then, let's say I genuinely believe that they don't know who I am. Then it's exactly like one thing that people have a tough time hiding is when they top deck something. So I'm trying to think, I'm putting myself in their shoes and I'm thinking like, what is the thing that they're thinking about that they want to top deck?
Doesn't it usually not matter in Lorcana, right? Because
No,
it's not
it matters a lot.
They just play it. They're like, oh yeah,
No.
I drew a great card. And
Okay.
Dan's like, wow, I'm reading their mind. They drew a great card. And then
So
they're
when
like,
I'm playing
"Be
green,
prepared."
when I'm playing green still, and I look at their hand with Diablo, right? And the turn before they have to be prepared, they draw the be prepared.
Sure.
So they went up to 6 ink and they're like, I'm gonna be prepared next turn.
Suddenly they're sweating to Ursula.
They would have smiled
Yeah. They would have smiled?
when they drew it.
Oh.
100% they would have smiled.
No way.
I tell you that since we've known each other from Magic, what are you talking about?
Bush League to smile in that spot.
Well,
I
no.
draw the card and I go, dang it, a
Bro.
bad card. And then
Okay, when they're out of cards, right? They give so much information from their body language when they draw the card. I'm like thinking about that 100%. But in between rounds, there's nothing to read.
Yeah.
You should be thinking about like what happened in the game prior and how I need to make adjustments in my play. So I'm not looking at you. I could care less. You could throw up and I wouldn't notice.
He does not care about your well-being. I just got that's a game loss, right?
and I wouldn't notice. Say what?
I think they're just gonna leave at that point.
Yeah, you can't keep playing if your opponent throws up and you don't notice. Your opponent throws up and you're like, all right, cut. It's like, dude, he's on the ground, bro. He threw up. Oh my God.
But I'm just saying, like, you have a limited time. Okay. The thing that people don't realize is your turn is not the time to think about when you're thinking about things. You're thinking about it when it's their turn. You're thinking about it when you're shuffling. You need to be. You got to be locked in trying to figure stuff out. If you are thinking nothing, or you're thinking about like some happy stuff, like I don't even know, like what you're gonna eat for lunch.
Happy stuff.
If you take anything away from this podcast, don't cheat at DLCs and don't smile at your opponents.
Don't cheat at DLCs. If you smile at Ryan, he's going to look better than you. That's his strategy. I have something that I'm keeping secret, and Zan is a psychotic person, is what I just... Zan is like, if you smile at Zan, then he'll take your soul like the spirit in Avatar, The Last Airbender. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's like, oh, what expression.
What do you mean? Okay, you know I think about these things all the time.
We got off the deep end.
Bro, like how many people have you seen me get with the pin trick?
The pin trick has gotten me twice, and I get red-faced thinking
All
about
right, I want to put this out for the rest of you guys who are getting got by the reverse of the pin trick. It's insane. I don't want them to attack. Pin trick. It's so good. It's so insane. I'm like, thank God I saved like 6 lore.
Oh, it happens.
Yep.
I want people to attack so bad.
If you're a rule shark out there, switch to a mind trick guy. Start doing pin tricks. Start doing, what's that thing that people do where they try to mind trick you where they're like, what's your name? And then they write it down on their life pad. Like, what are you doing, bro?
That's actually cheating.
That's actually cheating.
No note taking.
No note taking on what's your name. That's so good. I'm using that next time.
Yeah. I'm going to force them to be like, what's your name again?
Yeah. What's your name? And they write it down. I'm like, you can't take notes.
Rule shark.
Judge, my opponent wrote my name down on the life pad, and the judge is like, hey man, we're gonna take you. We're in Australia. They have asylums here. You're going away, buddy. You're nuts.
Okay, what if you play Diablo?
Yeah.
And you look at their hand and then you go, what's your name again? And then you write down their name in a way that you can remember.
Oh, it's like a really squiggly Z that like looks like Ursula a little bit. Zan's face right now. He's like, that's such a good idea. All right, I think I'm going to call it. That's our podcast. Ryan, where can they find you?
I am on Twitter at ATL Ryan Walker.
And Zan, where can they find you?
You're already here.
Plus Metafy.
Metafy. Get good. Join my Metafy.
And then you can find me on Twitter at MoxJeremy. I recently got into Twitter jail for wondering how someone could ever be called a cheater if they're a rule shark, but then I amended my position. So if you want a nice, controversial, scary tweet feed, then just follow me.
One more thing. Let me know what you guys want from the Metafy. Like what decks you guys are interested in playing, what you want breakdowns. I think I'm going to be posting some gameplay where I think through all the things that I'm thinking. If you're interested to know what and how I'm thinking about these games, and what decks you guys want me to play, I literally will play anything anybody wants me to play. So leave a comment. It definitely influences my decisions.
All right. See you guys.
Peace.